I just work here, watching good sense disappear. Simple fixes cause less pain, but here we go again.
Welcome to What Do I Know? I Just Work Here. I'm Jesse Dean. Last episode we talked about employees, training, culture, and why good companies invest in people instead of consistently replacing them. Today I want to continue down that path, but from a different angle. Today we're talking about leadership. More specifically, we're talking about the difference between managers and leaders. And yes, before somebody jumps into the comments, I understand that in a perfect world, good managers should also be good leaders. But in the real world, those two things don't always go together. I was once told something: stop being a leader and start being a manager. I thought about that and I realized they had it completely backwards. No, you need to stop being a manager and start being a leader. Because managers manage processes, leaders develop people. Okay, in this first section, we're going to go over, managers managing processes and leaders developing people. Managers generally know policy. They know procedures and how the company wants things done. Don't get me wrong, all those things are important. Companies need policy, procedures, and they need structure, but leadership goes beyond policy. Leadership means understanding the people you're working with. Leadership means understanding situations. It also means understanding that employees aren't simply parts in a machine. They're fathers, mothers, husbands, wives, sons, and daughters. They have family struggles, and they live outside of work. And this is where I think one of the biggest differences between managers and leaders starts showing itself. Managers tend to look at employees and see labor. They see a schedule, tasks that need to be done, deadlines that need to be met. And honestly, if humans were robots, that would probably work just fine. You would assign everyone the work, everyone would complete the work, and life would be easy. But people are not robots. People are human beings. And a leader understands that. A leader understands that sometimes people aren't themselves. And this is where a leader starts paying attention. This is where they start seeing changes. Somebody is quieter than normal, or they're distracted. They're seeing that the work that this person normally does very quickly, it's off. It's not being done. And this is what a leader picks up on. Leaders start asking themselves question. Is this technician or employee sick? Has something happened at home? Are they worried about something? Do they have a sick child at home? Whatever the situation is, good leaders pay attention to the people around them, because if somebody isn't operating at 100%, there's usually a reason. And if you identify the reason early, you can often prevent much bigger problems. Let's say somebody comes to work sick. A manager may simply think, well, we need the manpower, put them to work. A leader looks at that same employee and asks, should this person even be here today? Because sometimes sending one person home prevents an entire crew from being sick the next week. Sometimes it prevents an accident or keeps somebody from getting hurt because their mind isn't where it should be. In my industry, people work on ladders, lifts, rooftops, around electricity, and around power tools. If somebody's exhausted, distracted, sick, or dealing with some major at-home problem, a leader recognizes that, because now you're not just talking about productivity being down, you're talking about safety issues and protecting your people. A good leader understands that part of leadership is looking out for the people they're responsible for. You're almost part mentor, part coach, and sometimes, honestly, part parent. Now, that doesn't mean that you simply give everyone unlimited time off or ignore company responsibilities. The work still needs to get done. But leaders communicate. They work with people. They find solutions. When adjustments need to be made, they rally the team. Maybe you're down a technician for the day. Okay. Now leaders adjust. They let the team know that they're going to be shorthanded. So you shift priorities. Everyone digs in a little deeper, and the job moves forward. That's leadership. Because leadership isn't just, managing the work. Leadership is managing the people doing the work. A good leader doesn't simply quote policy. A good leader reads the room. They read the situation. They understand the context, because not every situation is identical. Now, before everyone gets upset, let me say this. Not all managers do this. I've worked with some absolutely phenomenal managers, but I've also run into managers that hide behind policy because, quite honestly, they don't know what they're doing. Policy becomes a shield. It's easier to quote a handbook than it is to understand the situation. It's easier to say, well, policy says, than it is to think critically and actually solve a problem. And a lot of times people that rely exclusively on policy aren't doing it because policy is the best answer. They're doing it because it protects them. If something goes wrong, they have a scapegoat. They can point back to the rule book and say, well, I followed procedure. Leaders understand policy too. Leaders absolutely need to know policy. But leaders also understand that real life is messy. Situations change, people change, circumstances change. And sometimes the best way to handle a situation isn't simply reading from the rule book. Now, I'm not going to say ignore policy, and I'm not saying break the rules. What I'm saying is leadership requires judgment. Leadership requires experience. It requires understanding when a situation calls for flexibility, compassion, or a different approach. Because the real world doesn't fit neatly inside a written procedure book. And honestly, if the only tool somebody has is a policy manual, they're probably not leading, they're administrating. If you've ever worked with somebody that treated employees like people instead of payroll numbers, let me know in the comments. And if you've ever worked for somebody that only knew how to quote policy, I'd love to hear about that too. Please like, subscribe, follow. Now let's take a quick pause.
Tired of making leadership decisions? Exhausted from understanding people? Worn out from using judgment, compassion, or basic common sense? Then call Policy Shield Corporate Services! Policy Shield, we follow every rule. Policy Shield, no need to think at all. Employee sick? Check the policy. Crew short-handed? Check the policy. Somebody dealing with a major family emergency? Check the policy. Why waste time reading the room when you can read the handbook? Our premium management package includes policy-based leadership, context-free decision-making, emotional blindness training, and our patented scapegoat protection system. If something goes wrong, don't worry at all. Just point to the handbook and blame protocol. Because leadership requires judgment, and judgment sounds risky. Policy Shield Corporate Services, protecting managers from accountability since, well, forever. Policy Shield Corporate Services is not responsible for low morale, employee turnover, preventable accidents, toxic culture, or managers discovering they were never actually leading.
Well, there's some quality information right there. Now let's keep going. Okay, in this next section here, we're talking about micromanagement and trust. So let's talk about micromanagement. I have a very strong opinion about micromanagement because I've rarely seen it work. Micromanagers create fear. Employees become afraid to make decisions, or to think for themselves, or to even try something new, and definitely to fail. Eventually, employees stop making decisions altogether. Instead, they wait for somebody to tell them exactly what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. You haven't developed a person, you've developed a dependency. Now, if you have to micromanage everybody every minute of the day, there are two things that are probably happening here. Either you've put the wrong person in the wrong position, or you failed to train them properly. Because if you've trained them, mentored them, and verified that they understand the process, eventually you have to trust them enough to do the job. Will they make mistakes? Absolutely. Everyone makes mistakes. I make mistakes, you make mistakes. The difference is how leadership handles those mistakes. Micromanagers often treat mistakes as failures. Leaders treat mistakes as teaching opportunities. Employees need room to fail safely. They need the opportunity to solve problems, make decisions, and learn from the outcomes. That's how confidence is built, and confidence matters because confident employees communicate. Employees that fear leadership hide problems. Hidden problems become expensive problems. Trust matters. Trust is everything. When employees trust leadership, they come to you early. They tell you when they've made a mistake, they ask for help. They communicate problems before they become disasters. That's leadership. Trust also allows leaders to step back. Micromanagers feel that they need to have their hands in everything. They want to approve every decision, answer every question, solve every problem. And a lot of times, that's because they don't trust the people around them. Sometimes they don't trust themselves. Sometimes they feel that if they're not involved in everything, they aren't needed. If they don't have their hands in everything, somebody might question their value to the company. Leaders understand something different. Leaders don't need to be involved in every decision. They create system standards and feedback loops. For me, one of those tools has always been end-of-day reports. At the end of the day, my technicians send me a report explaining what happened on the job, who they talked to, what was completed, issues they ran into, send me pictures of the installation, pictures of any potential problems, and or issues that they've encountered. Those reports allow me to see the overall health of a project without standing over somebody's shoulder all day. If everything looks good, my response may simply be, "Good job, guys. We'll talk tomorrow. Let me know if you need anything." But if something doesn't look right, now I know exactly where I need to focus my time and energy. That's leadership. Leaders focus where they're needed. Micromanagers try to focus everywhere. And no one can do that successfully. Eventually, you either burn yourself out, burn out your employees, or both. The goal isn't to create employees that need you for every decision. The goal is to create employees that think like leaders. Employees shouldn't simply identify problems. They should come up with possible solutions. That's how future leaders are created. Micromanagers create dependency. Leaders create capability. And here's the funny thing. A lot of micromanagers want to be the smartest turd in the toilet. But great leaders aren't interested in being the smartest person in the room. They're interested in building a room full of smart people. When you empower employees to think, solve problems, and make decisions, you accomplish far more than you could ever do on your own. And that's the difference. Managers create followers. Leaders create leaders. If you've ever worked with a micromanager, you probably already know exactly what I'm talking about. Drop your experience in the comments. If you've ever worked with somebody that trusted you to do your job, let me know how that made a difference. Like, subscribe, follow. All right, let's take another quick break.
Are your employees thinking for themselves, making decisions, showing initiative? Well, stop that immediately! Introducing the Micromatic 3000! Watch them constantly, correct them endlessly. Why build leaders when dependency is free? Approve every decision, answer every question, and never let employees solve problems on their own again. Micromatic 3000, because trust is overrated and hovering is forever. Not responsible for burnout, low morale, high turnover, or your entire team quitting without notice.
Now, where were we? Okay, this is another topic I want to hit here, working beside employees and, real experience. Another thing that separates leaders from managers is this. Leaders work beside their people. I've never had a problem grabbing my tools and working side by side with my technicians. To this day, I still carry tools with me. Technology, programming, software, and equipment all change, but the fundamentals don't. Installation fundamentals, work ethic, and leadership do not change. When employees see leaders willing to stand beside them, work beside them, teach them, something changes. You stop being a manager. You become somebody they trust, respect, and know they can call when they need help. You can't fake that. And here's another reason it's important to work beside your people. There have been many times through my career when I've been told it can't be done. Now, sometimes that's true. Sometimes there really is a hidden issue. Something was designed incorrectly. There are structural limitations, field conditions have changed from the original plan, so things won't work. Those situations happen, but there also have been plenty of times when it can't be done really meant I don't know how to do it. And those situations become teaching opportunity. The issue could be the technician has run into something outside their experience level. They've never had to fish wire down a wall, or they've never encountered this particular problem. This gives leadership an opportunity to step in, demonstrate a different technique, introduce a new tool, or simply show another way of approaching the problem. And every time you do that, you build credibility. Now, instead of employees saying it can't be done, they start saying, I don't know how to do this, Let me call my leader and see if they know. That's a huge difference. Now you have to be careful. You don't want employees picking up the phone every time they encounter a problem. You want employees to think critically. Have them stop for a moment and ask themselves, how would my leader approach this? Have I seen something similar to this before? What possible solutions can I come up with? Because part of leadership is creating employees that can think for themselves. Employees shouldn't simply come to leadership with a problem. They should come with possible solutions. That's how future leaders are created. And when employees know they can trust you, they'll generally call sooner rather than later. Not because they want somebody else to solve the problem, but because they know they're working with somebody willing to teach them. That's leadership. Now moving on to another issue. Fake it till you make it. Unfortunately, I've also seen this a lot. Honestly, there's two versions of this. The first version is perfectly healthy. Every one of us has eventually run into something we've never seen before. When that happens, you don't immediately stop and say, I don't know how to do this. You look back at your previous experiences and ask yourself, what have I done that was similar? What solutions have I used before? Can I apply any of that to this new situation? That's growth. That's learning. It's exactly what people should be doing. But there's another version of fake it till you make it. And that's where people exaggerate their experience, oversell their abilities, and talk their way into positions they aren't prepared for. Now, before anyone gets upset, every new position comes with new responsibilities. Every promotion requires a little bit of learning. Nobody knows everything. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people who intentionally inflate their knowledge and experience, figuring they'll somehow learn everything after they've been hired. Sometimes they talk their way through interviews because the people conducting them don't fully understand the technical requirements of the position. And for a while they can survive until they can't, because eventually employees figure it out. People know who understands the work, who can help, who is simply repeating things that they've heard from somebody else. When things start going wrong, leaders solve problems. People who are faking it usually start looking for somebody else to blame. Unfortunately, if leadership can't recognize that problem quickly, good employees often leave, because talented employees don't stay in environments where leadership lacks credibility. Trust and credibility aren't given, they're earned. And you can earn credibility by solving problems, teaching, listening, and treating people well. And you can lose credibility much faster than you can earn it. I've seen people walk into organizations like a steamroller in a glass shop. They immediately start changing things, assume they know everything, spend more time giving orders than listening, and then are surprised when no one trusts them. There's a saying that I really like. God gave you 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth so that you can hear and see twice as much as you speak. I think good leaders understand that. The first thing leaders should do is observe, listen, learn, understand the people and the culture, and then start making improvements. Because leadership without credibility rarely lasts very long. Leadership isn't about titles or authority. It's not about sitting behind a desk. What leadership is about is service. You're servicing the company you work for, you're servicing the employees that you work with, and you're servicing the customers that you work for. It's about mentorship, teaching, helping other people succeed. Because when your people succeed, the company succeeds. And as a leader, when the company succeeds, you succeed. If you've ever worked for somebody that knew everything until they actually had to do the job, drop it in the comments. And if you've ever had a leader that rolled up their sleeves and worked beside you, let me know that about them too. Please like, subscribe, and follow. Now let's take one more quick break.
Well now, has your supervisor ever gone on vacation and left everybody wondering? Who's gonna stand around asking questions nobody can answer? Well, friend, that problem's solved. Here at Vacation Coverage Solutions, we provide professionally trained management donkeys to temporarily replace upper management while they're away. So when Johnny Jackass heads off to Cabo for 2 weeks, you can sleep peacefully knowing there'll still be a jackass in charge. Our replacement donkeys are fully certified in interrupting productive work, changing plans halfway through the job, asking for updates every 15 minutes, and walking onto a job site right after everybody finally figured things out. Need somebody to stare at a clipboard without actually helping? We got you covered. Need somebody to ask, why is this taking so long, while actively slowing everybody down? That's one of our specialties. Vacation coverage solutions. Because leadership should never interfere with management. Vacation coverage solutions is not responsible if employees accidentally become happier, jobs finish faster, or customers notice improved communication while Johnny Jackass is on vacation. Well now.
Okay, now let's wrap things up because I've prattled on long enough. Leadership isn't complicated. It's hard, but it isn't complicated. Leadership is about people. It's about understanding that the people working beside you aren't simply labor. They're human beings with families, struggles, goals, life outside of work. Good leaders understand that. Good leaders mentor, teach, listen, and build trust. They create environments where employees can grow and learn and make mistakes and ultimately succeed. Because at the end of the day, leadership isn't about creating followers. It's about creating more leaders. It's about taking the people around you and helping them become better than they were yesterday. And if you do that long enough, something incredible starts to happen. The culture begins to build itself. People start helping each other, solving problems before they become disasters, and teaching the next generation. Eventually, you build a company where people actually want to come to work. Now, are people still going to leave? Absolutely. People will always chase opportunities, move on, or decide that another path is better for them. That's life. But if you invest in your people, mentor them, treat them with respect, and help them grow, they'll remember that. More often than not, they'll speak highly of your company long after they're gone, because people rarely forget leaders that genuinely cared about them. So if you're in a leadership position, I want to challenge you with something. The next time you walk onto a job site, into an office, or into a meeting, ask yourself, am I managing processes or am I developing people? Because managers manage processes. Leaders develop people. Companies that understand that are usually the companies that succeed. Thank you for joining me on another episode of What Do I Know? I Just Work Here. If you had a leader that changed your life, or if you've worked for somebody that taught you something you'll never forget, let me know in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and follow. And remember, what do I know? I just work here.
Watching good Sam's disappear. Simple fixes cause less pain. But here we go again.